Hello, and welcome back to my trauma series of podcasts. Trauma being such a big subject, we've divided it into 7 podcasts, and this is episode 3. Today, we are talking about trauma bonding. What is it? What does it mean? It's a huge and very, very complicated area of therapy because it covers so many issues. And to give a very brief overview of it here, I would probably mention things like our attachment style. How do we attach to people? Our unmet needs, which is to do with the Human Givens School of Psychotherapy and the needs that we have as humans that have to be met in whatever way we can get them met. I look a little bit at transference and counter-transference, by which I mean, who do your relationships remind you of? This is something in the therapy room that I have to be very mindful of as a therapist. Who does my client remind me of? Who do I remind my client of? What are the dynamics that are playing out? Because actually, that can have a huge bearing on what's happening in my room. If I remind them of someone like their mother or an ex-partner, if they remind me of someone that I didn't like very much, it's going to have a bearing on our therapy and how it's conducted. And that transference can be very unconscious. So we have to try to take it into account. Look at things like ego states, by which I mean, who are you when you're in your relationship? Are you the parent? Are you in adult state, or are you spending a lot of time in child state? And why might that be? And then looking at things like Stockholm syndrome, which I'm sure you know is about the relationship between a hostage and somebody who's being held hostage. Is that kind of dependent? Can become quite a dependent relationship, and there can be a lot of dynamics at play with that. So trauma bonding can be huge to look at. And I wanted to just break it down into some kind of layman's terms examples to give you an idea of where it might manifest and what might be going on. So let's think about a girl who grows up without a father, for example. So whatever reason, could be the father has died, it could be the father has left, could be that he's not able to be around because he's an addict and he's not emotionally available. So for whatever reason, the girl has grown up without her dad. Or she may have been abused as a child by her parents, which is sadly something that happens. So this girl is going to be looking for something when she goes into a relationship as an adult. She's going to be looking for a father figure, and she's going to be looking for someone to worship, and she's going to be looking to feel safe because she's not had that as a child. That's not happened. So that really basic fundamental human need has not been met for her. She's not had security. She's not had safety. She's not had any of that stuff. Probably doesn't even know quite who she is or where she fits because her father hasn't been around. So she's missing a huge chunk of her identity. So we've got loads of unmet needs here. So she needs to feel safe. And we feel safe normally when we're surrounded by something that's quite familiar to us. So if you think about the saying, home comforts, we talk about home comforts a lot, don't we? We say, oh, I really miss my home comforts when I'm on holiday. There's no place like home. Oh, I can't recover in hospital because I need my own bed. I haven't got my familiar surroundings. I haven't got my familiar possessions. We're always looking for the familiar as human beings. It's what we're programmed to do, is to look for the things that make us feel safe. Unfortunately, what that means is that the girl is probably going to go into a relationship that's not safe because she's going to be looking for what was familiar. And what was familiar to her wasn't actually what she needed. So a child that's been abused or a child that's been led to believe they're not good enough might say things like, why else would daddy leave? It must be my fault. Why else would he have gone? There's something wrong with me. And they will unconsciously seek out a pattern of unhealthy relationships as an adult that mirror their patterns from childhood. They're trying to get a need met for a healthy, very nurturing relationship. But because of these past narratives and this past environment that she grew up in, it will never be what she needs it to be. If we look further into this, we might ask ourselves, who is she to her partner? And who is he to her? who do they see themselves as? You know, does he see her as the child to be made compliant and molded to whatever he wants her to be? Does she see him as the dad she didn't have? And because she's so eager to please, she allows him to mold her until she's lost all sense of self and self-worth. And these are the trauma bonds that are playing out in my therapy room. And they are heartbreaking to sit and watch as a therapist. To sit and watch that playing out is quite horrendous. Attachment styles are very relevant because this girl wouldn't have learned any healthy attachment styles in childhood. So she has to be shown what they look like. And the role of a therapist is to show a client what is a healthy attachment style. We talk in therapy about the developmentally needed relationship, which is the relationship between a therapist and a client, where I can take the role of your nurturing parent for you until you're ready to parent yourself. And that is me showing you a more healthy attachment style than the ones you may have had. Anybody in the situation I've talked about here is likely to have a very insecure attachment style. So we talk about anxious or avoidant attachments, and they are the attachment styles that lead to depression, low self-esteem, and a very, very heightened sense of anxiety. The impact of this attachment style on our mental health can be so damaging that the person then clings further to the relationship, almost like a life raft. So they're clinging on to the thing that's making them ill because they're so frightened. They're so low now. That's at such a low point. They don't know anything else. So they're clinging on and clinging on and clinging on. And this entrapment then kind of worsens, actually. And the cycle continues and it becomes more entrenched, much harder to get out of. So as I kind of talked about there, the role of the therapist here is really important, because we can temporarily be the parent to the inner child part. We can facilitate healing, and we can be guiding with a sense of compassion as we're demonstrating what a healthy, intimate relationship might actually look like and what it might be about. We don't like to think about these things. We like to think our relationships are fine, that we chose our partner because we believe they would add something to our lives, that we were doing just great, thank you very much. And very easy to brush these thoughts under the carpet because they're uncomfortable, aren't they? They're very uncomfortable to have to confront. I had to confront this with my ex-husband. I had to look at that relationship and go, why on earth have I picked this? What does it say about me and my attachment style? What does it say about what was missing in my childhood? What was I looking for here? It hasn't served me, but I was looking for something. And it can be really uncomfortable to confront that and to kind of acknowledge that you might be somebody who has been the subject of trauma bonding as opposed to a healthy, nurturing bonding. So this is something perhaps to sit with. This is quite a heavy podcast today, and perhaps something for you to really be gentle as you listen. You may need to listen to it a few times, and just to be really gentle with yourself as you take in the content of it, and obviously to reach out if you need any support with it. But this has been Trauma Bonding, episode 3, and I will leave it with you. Bye for now.